No matter how intelligent we are or how knowledgeable we are, we can all use more intelligence, you see. So the goal of yoga is to enlighten our intelligence. So by this practice of Jnana Yoga, gathering knowledge about the self, your Bhakti Yoga, being devoted to this truth, Karma Yoga, offering everything to this truth, and Raj Yoga, meditating on this truth, our intelligence, our very intelligence is enlightened through association. Because this yoga practice allows us to associate with this Supreme Being, who is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. By association, there's some similarity. So we come back to the self by associating with the Supreme Self. And by associating with the Supreme Self, who is supremely intelligent, the source of all intelligence, we become more intelligent. So if we are, no matter what we're doing, what our profession is, we can always use more intelligence, the light of intelligence.
How should yoga be engaged? How should you start doing yoga?
Well, we can start by remembering to offer everything. All that we do, all that we offer, all that we give away, all the services that we perform, we can do it as an offering to the Supreme. This helps us associate with the Supreme. And by association, there's assimilation. So if we're thinking about the Supreme all the time, this is association with the Supreme. If we're offering everything to the Supreme, this is association with the Supreme. If we're gathering knowledge about the Supreme, this is association with the Supreme. If we're meditating on the Supreme, this is association. Association brings assimilation. It all revolves around associating with the Supreme. And thinking about the Supreme is a way of associating with the Supreme.
Okay. How should you meditate?
Well, there are many different methods of meditation. We can do mantra meditation by taking a name of the Supreme. And we know the Supreme that we're talking about here is within and beyond all names. It pervades and transcends all names, and it's beyond all names. So it's immanent and transcendent. So we can start out chanting. We call it chanting a name of the Supreme. This can be the very beginning. Call out a name of the Supreme and call it out all the time. This is association with the Supreme. So it not only stops negative thoughts from entering your consciousness and your awareness, it focuses us on the Supreme. And this has a purifying effect. We feel that we know that we have to purify our existence because we're already so much contaminated with lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. So by associating with the Supreme, who is supremely pure, the source of all purity and strength, it cleanses all these dirty things, all this lust, this anger, this greed, illusion, madness, and envy out of our consciousness. And we return to our original stillness, our original pureness of being. And we function in life with a greater purity of being, more intelligence, so we can be more successful in life.
How would you recommend integrating this yoga into your daily life?
Good, very good question, yes. So no matter what we're doing, if we're a photographer, we can do our photographing as offerings to the Supreme. No matter what we're doing, we try to do it in remembrance of the Supreme. If we're eating, before we eat anything, before we take any water, any kind of food into our body, offer it to the Supreme first. Remember the Supreme no matter what we're doing. We say all that we're doing, we do it in remembrance of the Supreme. So that if we're working, no matter what if we're driving a bus, drive that bus as an offering to the Supreme, as your service to God. Do your work as your worship, as your offering to God. And this will be in constant remembrance of the Supreme. And I use the word God because God is also a name of Supreme Being. It's not the only name, but it is one of the names that most of us in the West are familiar with. So we say to practically do everything in remembrance of the Supreme. We can remember the Supreme by offering everything we do unto the Supreme. If we just say, oh my God, please accept this humble offering before you sleep at night. Do this as an offering. Do everything as an offering to the Supreme.
Would you say that we are responsible for the suffering we have in our lives?
Yes, we are responsible for it. And when we take responsibility for it, then we can become stronger. We say what goes around comes around. We reap what we sow. This is the law of karma. So we saying other living beings are just instruments through which our own karma returns to us. So it behooves us to try and get cleaned up, because as long as our consciousness has dirty, is contaminated, then our thoughts are going to be contaminated. When our thoughts are impure, our feelings are impure. When our feelings are impure, our willing is impure. When our willing is impure, our doing is impure. And we suffer because of our own impure deeds. So yes, we're responsible for our condition. And the more we get cleaned up, the more we clean up, the less we suffer. Because the less we get the results of our own activity. Karma simply is a result of our own activity. We're reaping what we have sown. So the cleaner we are, the less we sow evil deeds, and less evil deeds come back to us. Yeah.
How can we clean up?
We say we clean up by offering constant remembrance of the Supreme. Constant remembrance. So all that we do, all that we offer, all that we give away, all austerities that we perform, we do it as an offering to the Supreme. And this enables us to remember the Supreme. And this remembrance is association with the Supreme. And association brings about assimilation. It's like whatever we associate with, some of it's going to get off on us. So this whole spiritual practice, this whole yoga practice, this offering, is associating with the Supreme. And by associating with the Supreme, we become purified.